Okay. It's 4:30. I think we're live for broadcasting. That's on the screen. Anybody able to check the announcements on Sakai real quick? I didn't email out the announcement. It's just on our announcements. Maybe I should have emailed it, but it said it'd be on announcements. Can you see a YouTube link in the announcements part? How what happens if you click on that? You get this? Yeah. We're about 30 seconds behind, but we're live? Yeah. Cool. Now I'm only a silhouette, so that's not what counts, that's what counts. So if we're actually doing some work, as we will be doing in the future, it's going to be a lot more vital that we're able to get the screen. As we're straddling in for quorum here, welcome, good evening to so many of you I normally see at 8:30 in the morning, or 9:30, or 10:30, or 12:30, or 1:30. 4:30 is an odd time, but I think we did all right last time. Let's do it again, shall we? I want to do this the same way we've done this in the past. One, I want to start with a bit of triage. So if anybody's already worked on this and they have specific questions that they like to have covered, we can start there. Second step is that we'll bless you. Second step is that we'll bless John. Third step is that we will start from the top and run through all, I believe they are 31. Here's the other thing too, is that we could get to the end and loop back around. Is that a question? No. We can get to the end and loop back around. There's also practice questions because there's a lot of practice homework assignments. And those are the ones that tend to be a little bit more challenging. The stuff that you get in these particular homework assignments, some of them are really sort of a direct, are you in the textbook? Are you paying attention to some of the fundamentals? I can't guarantee that being strong or doing a really good job on some of the basic homework assignments is going to get you as prepared as you need to be for the exams. It will just sort of set a baseline expectation. But as the material we have for the midterm, which is 3 weeks, gets a little tougher, having experience in those challenge problems might make your life a little easier down the road. So if anybody wants to stick around and work on some other things, because like heck, you're studying in college, learn, why not? Again, I'll stick around. We can learn. I got stuff to do, but one of those things is helping you. One, triage. Anybody work on these and have specific questions that they'd like to cover first? Okay, then let's start from the top, shall we? Question number one. Z-scores are standard scores that describe the differences of individual values from the mean in terms of what? A standard score is a Z-score, and a Z-score is measured in units of what? What's the unit of measurement in a standard score, or a Z-score? Is that a hand, Mike? Sure. It's a hand. The standard deviation, exactly. So that's what the answer key says. Wonderful. So as we've looked at this stuff in the past, it's typically been in the context of a normal distribution. And as we all saw yesterday, because we all saw it yesterday, was that not all distributions are normal. And you cannot make the assumption that all distributions are normal. For the case of an example here, I'm going to say this particular distribution is normal. Send this out to all cameras too. Something like the empirical rule always starts at the mean and then sets this unit of measurement here, which each one of these tick marks, this particular distance right here is the same between each one of those marks.
Oh, I was just gonna go right to the other side. So I thought you said my name and then.
No, I did. No, you're right. I did say Mark, but I was talking about like the marks on here. Come on in. We made it awkward. Take your pick. Yeah. Is there somebody with you behind a door?
I think you walked around.
Chris, did you panic? That was Chris, right? Was that Chris?
No, it was Billy Dolan.
Sorry
to cause a disturbance.
Yeah, no worries. It's all right. Billy. You skipped class yesterday and you hide behind the door? What's going on, man? Oh! Yeah. I'm here now. And I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. I hope you get something out of this afternoon. Anyway, each and every one of these little marks here is one unit, and this unit of distance is, as Mike pointed out, a standard deviation. Question 1D, 1 down, 30 to go. Question number 2. If present in a distribution, it's always if present. It's not that these things are always present, but less than what proportion, percent, or in this case, it's going to be a decimal, so we'll call it probability. Less than how many values are considered extreme values or outliers if they exist in a distribution. It doesn't have to be a normal distribution, any distribution. Brian, outliers, what percent are there? 3%. Remember, I have a physical problem hearing, so I need you to speak up. That's why I walked further away.
C.
You said C?
Yeah.
So you think, if present, there will be 3% of outliers?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you should change it because I gave you that tone.
97 point. I'm thinking the empirical rule is 99 point, like.
Right. You're right.
I know. I got confused. I'm gonna go back to. I'm gonna go A.
Gonna go with A. So as you were talking about the empirical rule, I think the point you were getting to was the 3 standard deviations part.
Yeah.
And what percent should be within 3 standard deviations of the mean?
99.7.
Yeah, 99.7%. 99.7% as a decimal is 0.003.
Yeah.
So I think that made you think that
Exactly.
that's what you want.
Yeah, but it's not.
What percent is 0.01? How much?
1.
Yeah, 1%. So if this were the correct answer, Brian, do you conclude that less than 1% of things are outliers?
Yep.
That sounds much more reasonable. 2 is A. Well done. 2 down, 29 to go. Question number 3. See? Didn't put the answers up there. Number 3, z-values between what and what are considered ordinary values. Ordinary values. What would be good ordinary values, Mitch?
-2 and +2.
-2 and +2. Why not -3 and +3?
If it was -3 and +3, it would fall into the unusual distribution category.
Go on.
Isn't that so? I really don't know how to describe it, but it's like the outliers, that's the far end of the normal distribution.
Uh-huh.
Like very infrequent, happens only a few times, it's very rare.
Right. Yeah, so what I think where we come to on this is, if we look at the previous question, identifying outliers as being 3 standard deviations away from the mean. And you're correct, Mitch, 3 is A. Circle gets a square. If we look at this again, previous example here, we could say 3 standard deviations away from the mean, these are going to be outliers. And if Mitch is correct, and he is, within 2 standard deviations of the mean are ordinary values. But that also sort of leaves us with these things here. Something that is somewhere between 2 and 3 standard deviations away from the mean. It certainly is an ordinary, but it's not necessarily an outlier. It is, I think you used the U word. Yeah, it's unusual. We're not saying these things are frequently occurring, these 2, but we are saying, in fact, that they might be a little bit unusual. 3 down, 28 to go. Questions on 1, 2, or 3? All right, moving right along. Gotta be dramatic with that one. 4, values more than 3 standard deviations away from the mean are, is it my jam?
Sorry.
No worries. Values more than 3 standard deviations away from the mean. That means you have a z-score, which is greater than 3. Conventional, ordinary, unusual but not extreme, or outliers. If you're 3 standard deviations away from the mean, you are what?
Outlier.
Outlier. Katie leads the charge of outliers. Yeah, we just did that. Do me a favor. If we see a question that we have already answered, such as that, and you know the answer, do me a solid. Shout it out. We can keep going. Sound good? Because y'all want to keep going, right? If you want to just hang out, we can hang out. I could be awkwardly standing in silence, but if you help me out, we can keep everything moving. Cool. Or if you want, if you give me an answer, I'll give you one of these delicious shortbread cookies. Actually. Like that's like it's like a fudge stripe cookie with no stripes. I may keep this one. All right, 4 down, 27 to go. Values that are more than 2 but less than 3 standard deviations away from the mean are, as we discussed in number 2. What's the answer?
Unusual.
Yeah, it sounds good. C, because it's written right there. But yeah, unusual but not extreme. That's the focus of the conversation that we've had over the course of the past 2 class days, Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, is seeing any of those things which are within 2 standard deviations of the mean. All those things are ordinary. And in fact, we saw that hybrids in the context of all cars, those were all ordinary. But then we had one car which was considered to be unusual because it was down in this range. We had one unusual, but nothing as an outlier. But that all has to do with your interpretation of the magnitude of the z-score. Uh-oh. A z-score of 0. Let's see, who did I have singing the song? What's the z-score for the mean?
0.
When?
Always.
Are you sure? All right, that wasn't bad, but I didn't get everybody with that. Is the z-score for the mean 0? Yes. When? Always. Are you sure? Yes. You can guarantee that will be a true-false question on the midterm exam. The z-score for the mean is always 0. But now we're talking about specifically in a normal distribution. In a normal distribution, I guarantee you that the z-score of the mean is 0 because the z-score of the mean is always 0. But what about the median? What about the mode? Which answer is correct here? Why is it D? Why is it D? Someone give me a syllogism. Someone connect me some logical pieces. Jimmy, please.
Normal distribution, the mean, median, and mode are all the same. So if the mean is 0, or like if the z-score is 0 for the mean, it's also for the mean, median, and mode.
I hope everybody caught that because that was bueno. Muy bueno, in fact. Yeah, because the mean, median, mode are all equal for a normal distribution. If the z-score of the mean is 0, which it is, then all 3 will be 0. Mean, median, mode, D. Good. Question number 7. It's up to you to figure out how many more we have to go, because I lost count. Hey, a value x. So every raw value x has a corresponding z-score. A value x with a z-score of -1.5 is blank the mean. Z-scores have 2 parts and they both start with D. What are the 2 parts of z-scores? Or if you can tell me that don't start with D, I'll still help you out. Z-scores tell us 2 things. One of them is direction. The other one is distance. So in the case of this z-score, -1.5, it has both a distance and a direction. First part is what is the distance? Is the distance 1.5, 1.5, 1, or 2? Which one is the distance? 1.5. What about direction? Is it above or below the mean? Below. 1.5 below, Winner, winner, I skip dinner. Number 8. A value x with a z-score of 3.4, a z-score of 3.4. What's that an example of?
Outlier.
Yeah, bingo. God, this whole thing is about outliers, isn't it? 8 outliers. 8 down, some to go. Number 9. Before calculating the z-score for x, you must first know, in the case of population data, what do you need to know in order to calculate a z-score? 2 pieces of information you need besides the raw value x. 2 essential pieces of information have
Mean and standard deviation.
mean and standard deviation. But as Jimmy pointed out, we could use the median and standard deviation as well. So what's the answer, B or D? Oh, I'm sorry. As Jimmy pointed out, the mean and the median are equal, so we could use either the mean and standard deviation or median and standard deviation. Right? So which one is it? The median and standard deviation or mean and standard deviation? Which one? But it could be median. Remember, Jimmy said the mean, median, mode are all the same. So it's not a normal distribution? How do you know, Victoria, Ali, how do you know it's not normal? Exactly. Now, as simple as that little piece sounds, it doesn't say it. One of the things that's going to help us succeed in this class is exactly that. Does it say it? There are going to be portions of story problems where you're going to have to figure out whether or not the standard deviation or the mean is provided from a sample or is representative of a population parameter. And the answer for evidence is going to be, it says so in the problem. But here, does it say this is a normal distribution? No. So we cannot use that as evidence to say that the median and mean are the same. We have to go with the mean only here. Mean and standard deviation helps calculate the z-score. That's a very windy Hershey kiss. 9, mean and standard deviation. All right. The formula for calculating a z-score is written up above there, but without the PDF from Sakai, it's going to be pretty hard to come up with which one that is. So let me pull that guy up so we can figure out which one it should be. Unless anybody's got that handy, they can tell me what's right. I can't really ask Siri today. Someone says B. Not that I don't trust you, but everyone's education is on the line right now, so. Let's see, tests and quizzes, a whole bunch of things. Is this 3 or 4? 4. Well, that's small. I don't think they ever intended us to get that close. Cool. So we have 4 potential formula here. Z equals x minus mu over n. Now we divide by n if we're going to calculate a variance or a mean. Z equals x minus mu over sigma. But I see mu minus x in the next one. And I see sigma x minus mu over sigma. Which one do we like there? Which one do we like there? Which one did I just write there? B, bravo, B. X minus mu over sigma, also x minus x bar over s. And on the back of some of my scratch paper, I thought I saw it in here. Never mind. This is last year's final exam. And let's see, actually, we'll skip that for now. If we stick around, I'll talk about that whole story problem thing. I think it's useful, but not right now. Let's stay on point. B. So we've completed 10. Any questions on 1 through 10? Question number 11. Well, I just sort of gave that one away, but the letters are confusing. Question 11. An English exam's mean should be an apostrophe there. An English exam's mean score is 85 with a standard deviation of 8.5. Assuming a standard grading scheme of 59 or below is an F and so on, which letter grade would be considered an outlier? What would be an outlier? If the mean is 85, if the mean is 85, would a B Bravo be an outlier? Yes or no, and why? Carly says no, why? Okay, you provided me lots of given information. I need you to put it together for the answer, though. Sounds good. So where Carly's going with this, and I think we might be able to recognize what the answer is off the top, but where Carly is going with this is that if we want to identify what an outlier is, we first draw the distribution. We first draw the distribution, and then we put 85 right here in the middle. It's kind of hard with that in a way. Mitch?
It would be a negative distribution.
A negative distribution, like a negatively skewed distribution?
Yeah.
I don't see that it says negatively skewed distribution anywhere in the problem,
We're
so
supposed to assume that based on the mean.
we're supposed to assume that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't see that assumption anywhere. Oh, then it's not an assumption, then it's an inference. I think you're onto something, though. It probably would be, in fact. Range restriction would force it to be negatively skewed. But why can I not draw a normal distribution, Victoria? When all else fails, if I call on you out of the blue, when all else fails, say the last thing you said. Because it doesn't say. I drew a normal distribution. Does it say normal distribution? No. Now, Mitch is trying to make the inference that more than likely we would have something where whatever the mean is, 85, and 100 is likely as high as you can go, that even if you did go 3 standard deviations above the mean, which is 8.5 is 93.5, 2 standard deviations above the mean is actually over 100. So we're likely going to see something that looks like this for a distribution, which looks like the knuckles of your right hand, and knuckles starts with N, negatively skewed starts with N, therefore it's probably a negatively skewed distribution. Probably, but that's only an inference. We can't say it to be sure. Now Carly's saying we start at 85. A B would not be an outlier because an 85 is a B, and it's what the average is. What's the answer then? Victoria? F? Yeah. Oh, as in option D, yeah. Letter F. And yeah, that's what's going to be the outlier here. You go 2 standard deviations above the mean, and A plus isn't an outlier. On the other hand, if you take 3 times 8.5 and get 25.5, and you take 25.5 to 85.5, I believe you get 59.5. I believe you do. I believe. But faith only gets us so far. Answer is D. The answer key gets us the rest of the way. 10 down, some to go. Number 11. John received a 77 on his last statistics exam. He knows from the professor that the exam had a mean of 88 and a standard deviation of 8. He would like to know where he stands in comparison to his classmate. Calculate John's Z-score for the exam. First of all, I want you to use the principle of LSA to eliminate 2 of these. LSA stands for least stupid answer. Which of these 2 can we immediately eliminate because they are stupid answers? C and D. Why, Mike? Because they're positive Z-scores. And why are positive Z-scores stupid? Because he's below the average. Very well done, sir. So it's going to be one of these other 2. How do we calculate a Z-score? Z equals, let's say x minus mu over sigma. What are we putting for x? 77. John's score of 77. X minus mu, what's the average or the mean? 88. Standard deviation of 8. So it's going to be one of those 2. 11 over 8 is 1 3/8. Is 1 3/8, so that's 1.375, otherwise known as 1.38. The answer is, wait, I already got rid of that one.
Negative 11.
Because it's negative 11 over 8. Don't drop your signs, y'all. Don't drop your signs. By the way, this hat has a little bit of history. This hat I got from a friend of mine in college. He was a senior, I was a sophomore. I was his pre-calc tutor. He was taking pre-calc as a senior, and all I needed to do was pass the course. He walked into the final with a 92 average, knew he only needed a 40 to pass the course and graduate, so he answered the first 2 questions and walked out. I was so upset because I spent all semester tutoring him, and he was like, yeah, I passed. It's like, you had a chance. He's like, yeah, I know. It breaks my heart, so he gives me a Cleveland Browns hat. But it's more than that, much more than that. 12 down, some to go. I didn't like that. I don't want to see that out of you. If you walk into my class with a 92 average and bomb the final intentionally, you. Yeah, let's have some fun. Why not? Find out what works, get rid of what doesn't, and try something new. That's how you innovate. 13. In a recent statistics exam, Sarah was convinced that she did a fantastic job because most students are. It's called post-decisional dissonance. You walk away feeling good about something because you had to have done it or else it wouldn't have been the right thing to do. Anyway, Sarah was convinced that she did a fantastic job compared to her classmates, possibly even being an outlier. She's so awesome. The professor told the class that the mean score was 75 with a standard deviation of 12. Sarah's score was a 95. According to her Z-score, how did Sarah's score compare to the rest of the class? Was Sarah that awesome? What would she have needed to score to be an outlier on the positive end? What would she have needed to score? Or how many points above the mean would she have needed to score to be an outlier on the positive side? How many? 36. She would have had to have scored 36 points above the mean. 36 points above the mean to be an outlier is 75 plus 36. Is that picket fence? How much? Yeah. She would have had to have scored 111 points because that is the mean plus 3 standard deviations. And she only scored a 95. So she certainly wasn't an outlier. Ooh, she could have been the top student in the class. But in order to know if she was the top student in the class, we would have to know what the actual maximum score was. We cannot use our knowledge of any of this. Someone can have a Z-score of 5, be an outlier, and that's amazing, but we still don't know if it necessarily was the best score in the class. Someone could have scored better than she did and been a 5.2. But we have no information about what the actual maximum is. So is she unusual or is she ordinary? Let me hear what you say. She's ordinary. Why is she ordinary, John?
She's within 2 standard deviations.
What is her z-score?
1.66.
1.6. 1.6. 1.6. Is it? I don't know. So it's her score is 95 minus 75 over 12 equals 20 over 12. Believe it to be positive, which is 10 over 6, 5 over 3, which is 1.6 recurring, otherwise known as 1.67. She's ordinary. Questions on 13? 13 down, some more to go. In a large lecture hall, 200 students take a history exam. Assuming that the resulting exam scores are normally distributed, how many student scores fall within the range of ordinary values? How many should be ordinary? What percent should be ordinary? Ryan, I know you got a number. What percent should be ordinary? 95%. Now what's 95% of 100? 95% of 100 is 95. But if we had 200s, it would be 2 times 95 or 190. Thank you, sir. So we would expect, no matter what the mean is, but I can use this picture now because why?
Does it tell you that it's normal?
Thank you. Because it tells you that it's normal. Because it says normal distribution, I now get to draw this. If it told me it was a uniform or a Poisson or a binomial probability distribution, I would be forced to draw whatever it told me. Here, it tells me that it's normally distributed, so I'm going to be able to say within 2 standard deviations of the mean, that's 95% of n equals 200 or 190. C. Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Moving on. 1515. Which one of the following methods allows comparisons among different values from different... Dang it. Which one of these methods allows comparisons among different values from different variables? Okay, perhaps you've already seen that. You've already seen what the answer is up there. Emily, did you see the answer? Do you know the answer? Do you imagine what the answer would be given those options?
C.
Why? Yeah. Yeah, no, you're smarter than you think you are. Most of you. Anyways. Yeah, the answer here is C, is standard scores. What this will allow us to do is to make comparisons between things which would not normally be compared because we make them standard. That was the whole point of saying, let's put this one particular car, this one record, car number 171, in the context of all the cars, and then let's compare it in the context of just the hybrids. So we're able to take a look at something and compare it in different scenarios to see whether or not it was, in one case, ordinary, and in the other case, a little bit unusual. So things can be compared in different ways depending on their context. The rest of those things are pretty much nonsense. Sure, you can sort things in order from largest to smallest and say, aha, this person was this was the best car for this dealership, and this was the best car for this dealership. Now let's compare those. One group's best may be the same as another group's worst. Just sorting them doesn't get you all the way. Ratio measure is just a level of measurement. Variance is a way we get to z-scores. Standard scores allow us to make these comparisons. 15 down, about halfway to go. 1616. Assume that the mean height for men in the U.S. is 5 foot 8 inches tall, otherwise known as 68 inches, with a standard deviation of 6 inches. What is the z-score for a man who is 6 foot 2 be? What would the z-score for a man who is 6'2" be? How do we get there? Which value up here represents x? Dan? X, not x bar. I think. Yes. Which one is the x that we input into the formula? 6'2". Because we're talking about a man, one particular individual. We're pulling out the essential information from a problem like this. There's 3 things we need. You'll always be given the formula, x minus mu over sigma, which means we just need to figure out what these 3 pieces of information are. What's the value for the mean, Dan? The value for the mean? Nope. How do you know? Right here. So we're gonna get more and more complicated with these story problems. I can't emphasize this enough. If you see what we're doing right now with the introduction of story problems as being the type of thing that's rote or simple or beneath you, it's going to get harder to develop good habits now. I know that the value for mu is 5 foot 8 because it tells me. Because implies that I need evidence. Because it tells me mean height is 5'8". What's the standard deviation and how do you know? 6 inches because it tells us. And now we're looking for x of 6'2". What's the shape of the distribution? Doesn't tell us, so we don't know. We've talked about height being normally distributed, but in this case, it doesn't tell us. So what do we know about the shape of the distribution according to this problem? Nothing, exactly. We don't know this about this. Use the formula. X is 6 foot 2. 6 times 12 is 72 plus 2 is 74 minus mu. 5 times 12 is 60 plus 8 is 68. Anyone? Oh, only one, sorry. Only one. B, 16B, number 1. Good. We're halfway there. Whoa. Assume the mean height for men in the U.S. to be 5 foot 8 with a standard deviation of 6 inches. How tall would a man have to be to have a z-score of 2? So we got 3 given pieces of information here. 1, we have the mean. What's the mean? 5'8". What's the standard deviation? How do you know, Peter? It tells you. Yes. I'm going to love that answer from now until the end of the semester. If you just want to say it tells me, that's great. What's the value for x that we have here? You don't know. Well, what do we know? We have x, we have mu and sigma, Peter, but what we have besides x? Yeah. So while we could be thinking about z equals x minus mu over sigma, we have an algebraically equivalent formula, which looks like that. And because we have mu equals 5'8", sigma equals 6 inches. What do we have for value z? What's the value for z? How much? 2. How do you know I have? Thank you. Z-score 2. 5 foot 8 plus 2 times 6. So a foot over 5'8" makes you 6'8". Peter, how tall is 6'8" inches? Which one of those is right? 80 what? 80 inches. Thank you. Absolutely. I honestly, I don't know where they came from. You're sort of taking your life into your own hands. That's fine. They were on the table up there. I mean, they're cookies, right?
Oh, so.
It's all right. I honestly don't have any milk though. Anyone have some milk? A little dunking? Okay. 17 down. Some more to go. 1-8. Assume that the mean height for men in the U.S. is 5 foot 9 inches tall with a standard. What? All right. We've got new assumptions. Our values have changed. Like not these values, but values up there. How tall would a man have to be to have a z-score of -3? Which two can we eliminate right off the bat because they're essays or stupid answers?
C and D.
Why C and D, Mitch?
That's over 6 feet tall.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be what?
That's above the mean.
And what are we looking for?
Because we're looking for z-score of -3, which is going to be below the mean.
Thank you. So let's get rid of the two which are above the mean. And at this point, there's sort of two approaches we can go. Honestly, we could say, all right, let me compute the z-score for 56.4. Minus 5 foot 9, which is 5 times 12 is 60 plus 9, 69, over standard deviation of 4.2. We calculate this value. And if that gives me -3, then I circle this one. If it does not give me -3, I circle the other one. Which is the answer? I'm hard of hearing. Hey, yeah, thank you. I'm beginning to think that my hearing problems are not from loud music. I'm beginning to think it's because I shout a lot and it just echoes in my brain. We say the answer is A? Okay, I'll have to agree because it's not where it should be. Oh, boom. Looks like B. Do you want to go back and retreat and figure out how we got that one, or are you just throwing out A? Let's pull up some Excel. Just take a quick look because I got to make sure we get the right answers here. There was sort of consensus around A, wasn't there? Do we think B is the wrong answer? It's not like we haven't seen wrong answers in the past. So let's just do a quick little calculator. And it looks like this. I know I'm going to need the mean, standard deviation, and some X value, right? We said the mean was how tall? 69 inches? Yeah. What's the standard deviation? 4.2. And we went with the raw score that said what? What was the raw score for value A? 56.4 inches? Okay. Is everything up here in terms of inches? 69 inches, 4.2. All right, cool. So our z-score will be SAD. X minus the average divided by the standard deviation. That appears to give me a really value of 3, not like a slightly different value of 3. 56.4, what's 58.4 give us? Answer key. Boo. All right. so we're on with 18A. Odds are, if you put this into Sakai, you're gonna get the wrong thing out of the top.
I was gonna ask which one we should actually.
Yeah, I want you to put the right answer because I'm gonna update the key. And if somebody tells me, they email me and say, update the key, I'll update the key. Who wants me to update the key? Cool, Rach, can you send me an email? Just say update the key for number 18, make it A. Thank you. Appreciate that. Way to cause a commotion when you come in, Chris. I just busted some chops on those guys. Oh no, wait, turns out the answer was A. I was looking at the answer key for the page. No, I was looking at the answer key for number 7. Anyway, thanks for the email, Rachel. That was really nice of you, but I was looking at the wrong answer key. I think it was so cool. Number 19. A small population of quiz scores has values 68, 74, 76, 80, 88, 92. After converting each score into a z-score, what is the mean of the z-scores? Okay. So in order to calculate the z-scores for all of these, there's 2 pieces of information that we need. What are the 2 pieces of information we need to calculate z-scores for each of these? We need a what and a what? We need a mean and a standard deviation. Who wants to calculate the mean for all these scores, and who wants to calculate the standard deviation for all these scores? Not it. All right. Well, Mike's doing that. Mitch is going to explain how to save you that time.
Z-score of the mean is always 0.
I'm sorry?
The mean of the z-score is always 0.
The mean of the z-score is always 0. But I thought the z-score of the mean was always 0. Right, what did we just get done saying? The z-score of the mean is always 0. And now you're trying to tell me that the mean of the z-scores is always 0? Yeah, actually, it doesn't matter which way you say it. The mean of the z-scores is always 0, and the z-score of the mean is always 0. And I honestly don't know if I said the same thing twice in a row, but it can go both ways. That's the property of the z-score. Because it's based on average, and it's based on the distance from the average, and the fact that the average is a physical balance point. If I have 3 things and one of them is the mean, one of them is above the mean, the other one better be below the mean. How far below the mean? The same distance below the mean as the first one was above the mean. And that's the way z-scores will always work. If you have 2 things and they are different, 2 things with a non-zero variance, only 2 things, the mean of them will not equal one of them, because one of them will be above the average and one of them will be below the average. And how far above and below? Why, the same distance. So you can convert all of those things into z-scores and take the average, and you're still going to get 0. Out. Always. It's property of the mean. Z-score of the mean is always 0. The mean of the z-score is always 0. Property of the mean. This is one of those questions which is a concept question disguised as a math question. It looks like you're supposed to execute a whole bunch of math, and you will see more questions like this in the future, which is, if you aren't familiar with the concept, you're going to spend a lot of time doing a bunch of calculation. But if you're familiar with the concept, you can skip all the calculation. Don't call it a trick. It's called knowledge of the material. 19 down, 12 to go. 22-0. A small sample of quiz scores has values of 68, 74, 76, 80, 88, 92. After transforming each score into a z-score using the z-score formula, what is the standard deviation of the z-scores? Who wants to calculate the mean and standard deviation so we convert all these things to z-scores? I don't think any of us feels like doing that arithmetic right now or having to put this stuff into Excel. So let's go with another philosophy. I'm sure all of you are going to have to take some more standardized tests at some point. That's why we approach this from the LSA perspective. What would be the case for the standard deviation to be 0? If C was the answer, what would have to be true about those quiz scores? They're all the same. Very good. So the answer cannot be C because the quiz scores are not all the same. 1 down, 3 to go. If the standard deviation was 67.2, and this is the standard deviation of the z-scores. Standard deviation of the z-scores. The mean of the z-scores is always what? 0. The mean of the z-scores is always 0. And if the standard deviation of the z-scores was 67.2, 67.2, that means in a normal distribution, without loss of generality, just using an example, in a normal distribution, the z-score of the mean is 0, and 68% of things would have to be between z-scores of negative 67.2 and a positive 67.2. If you ever see a z-score of 67.2, you did something wrong. That's so far away from the mean, it's impossible. 8.2, you might see it occasionally, like once in a rarely ever. This is another one of those identity problems. The standard deviation of the z-scores cannot be 0, won't be big numbers. We're only left with what? B, otherwise known as 1. The mean of the z-scores is always 0. Standard deviation of the z-scores is always 1. Down, some to go. Uh-oh. When calculating z-scores for a sample as opposed to a population, the z-score formula needs to be adjusted. Come back here. Needs to be adjusted. Oh God, that's such a crappy font. All right, how do we make that adjustment? You gotta be in the text to know what you do when you've got a sample instead of a population to make that adjustment. Anybody in there? What do you mean, D? Who said D? The Jimmy, Chris, Brian, Ryan, what's up?
For a sample, not population, so you have to change the variable test.
Yeah, that's all it is. We're talking about a sample out of population. Let's use S not sigma and X bar not mu. All right, so much for that. And that answer on here is D. Here. Alright, Doug camera. Send the phone. Send the phone. Boom. 21 D. Make sure you use X bar and 21 down. 10 to go. 22. A sample of scores from a research study. There we go. A sample of scores from a research study examining stress in the workplace has a mean of 7 and a standard deviation of 2.3. John scored 6.2 in a stress survey. What's John's Z-score? All right, let's pull out some essential information. What's the value of x in this case? What's the value for x? 60 or 6.2. Great. What's the value of mu in this situation? How much? How much? What are you saying, Gab?
It's not mu because it's a sample and used for a population.
Thank you. We don't have mu, we have x bar. I know it doesn't change procedurally how these things are calculated. And it seems like such a jerk move to say, I'm sorry, when we go forward, the difference between a sample and population is so important, it will change your answers from right to wrong. In this case, we don't have mu, we have x bar because we see the word sample, which means we also have s, not sigma. Get in the habit of recognizing whether or not it's sample or population level. Regardless, we can go ahead and I'll help you out here with the calculator. If you can tell me what the mean is, which was 7, x value was 6.2, is that right? With a standard deviation of 2.3. So 0.35. Nope. Sorry, still the wrong hat. 0.35. 0.35? Negative 0.35. Negative 0.35, where your priors have negative 0.35. Answer C. Didn't work as well as I thought it would. 22C, 22 down, 9 to go. 23. A sample of statistics exams from a university has a mean of 75 and a standard deviation of 7. Penny scored a 92 on her exam. What is Penny's z-score? All right, we got a couple pieces of information. We got x. X is Penny's score. Penny scored 92. What's the value from you? I'm sorry? Thank you, Ryan. And other business students? I can only get so much leverage out of that one, but I do need more from you. Mu is population mean. What do we have here? Sample. So it should be a sample mean of 75. Ryan, is that sigma or S for the value of 7? Very good. This is a sample, so we have X bar and S. Either way, we still calculate this the same way. We calculate it as X 92 minus X bar, which is 75. 92 minus 75 gets us 17 over 7, which is the standard deviation, 14, 7, 3, 7, 42, 2.42. 3? I can't round in my head. 2.43. Questions, comments, concerns? We're just calculating z-scores. Get it moving, right, Mike? Yeah. According to the empirical rule, what percentage of values will fall within one standard deviation of the mean? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. 68. 25. The empirical rule is also known as 1, 2, 3. The 50, 75, 95 rule. D, the 68, 95, 99 rule. Yeah, make it sound like Blue's Clues or something. No, or no, Dora. Which one was it? We shout at the screen. I don't know. He did shout, Mr. Rogers. He sat politely and listened. 68, 95, 99.7 rule. 25 down, 6 to go. The student's test score. A student's test score turns out to be z equals -1, below the mean for the SAT. Using the empirical rule, what percentage had a higher score than the student? This really is a preview to Module 5B where we talk about continuous probability. In order to do this, we could simply draw a picture and say, I'm going to draw a picture. Looks like this. And has a z of -1. And we know that between +1 and -1 for a z-score, we should find what percent between -1 and +1 for the z-score?
60.
Thank you, 68%. So what percent should be just right here? This should be 34%. The entirety from the median to the left is 50%. 50% minus 34% puts 16% here. A z-score of -1 means you've scored above only 16%. Or, using the empirical rule, what percentage of students had a higher score than this student? 84%. Now, I will take issue with this particular question. Why do I take issue with this particular question? Because I wore my Browns hat. Jimmy.
It doesn't say that it's a normal distribution.
So,
In the problem, it doesn't say.
yes, in the problem, it doesn't say that the SATs is normally distributed. Just the way it didn't say with height that it was normally distributed. It definitely doesn't say it here, but that's sort of like one of the defining characteristics of the SAT, is that it comes out as a normal distribution. And when the SAT doesn't end up normally distributed, they revise the test so it becomes normally distributed. You really think it's about an assessment tool? It's not about assessment, it's about grading. It's about separating some people from other people on their ability to complete an exam. It has nothing to do with your skill level. You can teach someone how to take the test without knowing how to do the work, and that means it's a bad assessment. That's just me ranting and raving about how to cheat at tests. I mean, D. 27 and on is true false. Converting an entire sample or population's raw scores into z-scores changes the shape of the distribution. And I need hands here. Who says true? It changes the shape of the distribution. Who says false? It does not change the shape of the distribution. It's false. It does not change the shape of the distribution. Remember, all those times we said we're going to look at a histogram to determine whether or not something is normal. We can convert that normal distribution into z-scores, and it doesn't change the shape. It just changes the labels that we put on it. 27, false. It does not change the shape. 2828. The range of ordinary values falls within 2 standard deviations of the absolute value of z less than 2. Who says true? Ordinary is within 2. Who says false? True's had it. Take it home. Because that's what you do with things that you have. 29. True or false? When an entire population of samples' raw scores are transformed into z-scores, the mean of the z-scores will be 0. What is the mean of the z-scores? When? Are you sure? Yes. So it doesn't matter what you do here. The mean of the z-scores will be 0. Don't care what you say, because this is what I need today. True. 29 down, 2 to go. Z-scores are reported as the same measurement unit as the raw scores. Who says true? Just false. All right, I don't see a lot of hands there. So who says true? Come on. Uh-oh, Jeff's encouraging you because he must think it must be the right answer or the wrong answer. What's the justification, Mike? What's the answer, true or false?
I put true.
Why do you put true?
I didn't know.
I appreciate your candid nature of responding. I honestly do. You're wrong, though. But I want you to know why you're wrong so that you can be right next time. Sound good? Anytime you report raw values, inches tall, dollars, points on a test, those are the units, the inches, the dollars, the points. But as soon as you convert something to a standard score, your unit of measurement is a standard unit. And it sounds weird just to call it a standard unit, but you're measuring a number of standard deviations. You're no longer talking about something being 6 inches above the mean. You're going to talk about it as being a standard deviation unit above the mean. And when you say a standard deviation unit above the mean, your unit of measurement is a standard deviation. Whole point of converting things to z-scores is because we can compare somebody who is like, which is more crazy, which is more unusual? A guy who is 8 feet tall or a girl who has $1 trillion? Which is more unusual? Well, we convert them both to z-scores, see who has the higher z-score, and say, well, one of them is more unusual than the other. 30 is false. Standard units. And 31 should be around here. There it is. The empirical rule does not apply to all normally distributed variables. Well, that sounds like some weird logic. What do you think? Who says true? The empirical rule does not apply to all normal things. I think the empirical rule does apply to all normal things. If we know that a distribution is normal, we can apply the empirical rule. A implies B, not B implies not A. In this case, false, because it's phrased backwards. It totally applies to all normal distributions. (31B) false. So that's done with the graded homework stuff. Anybody wants to like hang out and just like ask questions or do stuff, I'll stick around a little while. We can look at some other practice stuff or anything you got questions on. Start open office hours or hanging out. I'll let you disperse a little bit. Hey, thanks for stopping by, taking your education seriously. Makes me proud of you.